At the beginning of the film, you will see a group of people working in a cornfield. Suddenly, a man named John Juakamba passed away at that time. He was buried in the traditional manner, leaving behind his children, his eldest son, Jeremiah, and his younger brother, Triwol Kamkwamba. At home, William, a creative boy who is skilled at restoring electronic devices on his own, is working on a neighbor's radio. They used to use the neighbor's radio to get the weather forecast, which was helpful for farming. William also has a sister named Ani. Afterwards he was told by his father to fix the roof on their home. While working on the roof, he noticed the owner of the radio approaching and wanted to take the radio that was being fixed out of his hands, but William refused to accept responsibility for the radio's failure. After taking a shower, he noticed his new school clothes on his bed, put them on, and hurried to his parents, who were overjoyed because this was his first day of class. He proceeded to school and met his friend Gilbert there. Triwol can be seen working as a porter in another location. In the meantime, Triwol's daughter and wife both work in the farm barn to help them pay their bills. They also hope that their life will be changed by Ani attending college. In the class where William is participating in school activities, there is already a teacher named Kaji Gunda who will serve as both William's homeroom teacher and the scientific teacher for the group. He then delivered a message from Ani to Kaji Gunda and instructed William's father to pay his school fees immediately. When he got home, he immediately studied for the exam the next day but struggled because of the poor lighting. His mother then came and asked him to assist his father in growing corn. The exam began the following day, and William did well on it. William and Gilbert visited a junkyard after school where they searched for usable stuff. He discovered a battery there. When they arrived at Gilbert's home, the locals had gathered because an investor was interested in purchasing their land. Gilbert's father, the local traditional head, rejected their request since removing the trees would result in flooding in their area. When Jeremiah quickly sprang to his feet and declared his willingness to sign the contract, the rest of the neighborhood did the same. Triwol then arrived at Jeremiah's house, where they had an argument. Jeremiah refused to take his counsel and decided to sell his land nevertheless. The following day, William built a bird trap to earn money. Suddenly, he heard the sound of a mower and ran to where it was coming from, when he found that the trees had started to be cut down. Afterwards, he went to his friend's house to listen to the game. When their radio abruptly stopped working in the pouring rain, he sprinted to his house to obtain a battery and then told his father to pay the school fees right once. He attempted to fix the damaged radio at a friend's house using his skills. When they returned home, they discovered Kaji Gundam and his sister alone. The following day, they planned to destroy Kaji Gundam's bicycle, but when he was unable to do so, Gilbert asked him to take Kaji Gun to the bicycle light instead. It was then that he observed how the lamp functioned, which he found to be rather peculiar, by turning the bicycle pedal so that the light was on. William was deeply distressed by what he had just overheard his mother and father discussing during a late-night conversation regarding his school fees. His father had stated that he had not been able to pay them. The following day, those students, including William, who had not paid their tuition were gathered in one room and told to leave so they could return to school once they had paid the necessary fees. At that time, it began to rain heavily, flooding the cornfields of Triwol, preventing them from harvesting their crop. The following day, William and Triwol traveled to a tobacco factory to meet Daniel, an old friend of his father's. William hoped that Daniel could assist him in getting in touch with the investors so they would be willing to resell the unfallen trees they had purchased so that the tree can withstand flooding in their land. But Daniel advised him to find another line of work because the soil conditions and their location were too dry and that it would be difficult to farm there during times of drought and rain. He warned that the coming dry season should be prepared since a longer famine was unavoidable. The following day, they noticed that their plants weren't growing well because the land was extremely dry and there wasn't any water. Triwol then told the traditional leader there about the incident and asked him to inform the president who would be visiting their region of the community's complaints. However, when William came back, he discovered a dead battery in the junkyard. He believed he might use it to fix the water pump, but he needed a dynamo to bring the battery back to life. The following day, William went to school in secret so that the teachers and principal wouldn't find out that he hadn't paid his school fees because he still wanted to learn. After the lesson, when he was being rocked, he asked Koji Gunda about the light on his bicycle. Koji Gunda responded by explaining where he could find a dynamo to replace the dead battery. He then advised him to simply study the subject in the library, where he could find books on the dynamo's use of energy. However, he was unable to enter the library since he had not paid his school fees. He then promised to keep his relationship with his sister a secret as long as he could join the library, and with the help of the Kaji Gunda, he was eventually able to do so. He then looked for a book and read about how to use electricity. The traditional chief spoke during the president's visit to their area, at first complimenting the current administration then lamenting the flooding in their current location. Currently, the government just visits to campaign and does not pay attention to the people's lives, so he hoped that the government would pay more attention to their area. This caused a discussion between the president and his assistants. Then the president directed his aide to take the traditional leader backstage, where he beat him with the help of the president. The incident caused the traditional leader's health to worsen. Day after day changed, and when harvest time came, the corn garden's output fell far short of expectations, even for consumption. Since the next harvest wouldn't come for another year, Triwall was forced to sell everything he had to keep himself and his family alive. He even had to sell their home's roof and replace it with straw. When they arrived at the market, the costs of goods started to rise, and they heard on the radio that the government was denying the current food crisis and was instead preoccupied with ensuring their victory in the upcoming election. Hearing this, Triwall traveled to the city to support the opposition groups and against the government, and they left with the intention of showing that the government recognizes the current food crisis. The following day, William visited the library to read a book about how to produce energy for a battery to be used to pump water. This will allow them to harvest twice during the dry season and have access to water sources throughout that time. Kaji Gunda asks Ani to leave the community and get married to him in another location after trying to persuade her to do so. The following day, William wishes to ask Kaji Gunda about how to operate a dynamo, but Mr. Rafizi, the principal of the school, was the substitute teacher that day. When Mr. Rafizi noticed William there, he instantly expelled him from the building. William told his mother he had been expelled from school when he had just returned home. His mother then noticed the locals rushing to the government truck that was selling wheat for a very low price. She immediately asked him to go buy grain from the government truck. Elsewhere, Triwall is traveling to the city when he notices the state of the populace beginning to deteriorate and cause disorder. As he watched individuals fighting over food, he thought of his family and urged the driver to turn around and head back to the area. At home, Ani wants to accompany Kaji Ganda, but her mother tries to dissuade her before an unexpected visitor entered the house and stole their food. When they exited the home, they discovered that someone had stolen their barn's corn harvest. William is waiting for a government truck that sells wheat cheap at a different location, but the scene there appears to be highly chaotic due to the rising demand for wheat at such low costs. He went to get himself into the grain-filled barn outside the warehouse as the situation became increasingly chaotic. He was stuck within the warehouse and made an attempt to escape by smashing through the walls. Finally, he returned home with a weed that was reportedly insufficient for their daily food supply, so the Triwall made the decision to restrict their food by only eating one meal each day. When Ani started to blame her father at that point, her mother reprimanded her. Every day they continued to live as normal, despite only eating once every day. William went to his sister late at night and instructed her to request Kaji Gunda for a dynamo. The following day, after gathering firewood, William found his mother and father sobbing at the departure of his sister, who had left them and joined Kaji Gundam. He then went inside and discovered the dynamo of the bicycle that Koji Gundam had left before his sister left. Then Triwall and his family went to the principal and asked Mr. Rafizi for the address of Kaji Gunda. Mr. Rafizi said that if he doesn't know where Kaji Gunda is at this moment, schools will be temporarily stopped, sending teachers and students home. Then William asked Mr. Rafizi's permission to enter the school library, where he took a book and a dynamo, then began to experiment from the books he had taken. He eventually achieved success in building a windmill that could run a radio without the need for batteries with the support of some of his buddies. They eagerly started looking for used items to build a larger windmill. William went to his father and showed him his construction at a different location. He then wanted to use his father's bicycle to build a larger windmill, but his father declined and instead told him to give up all of his aspirations. William and Gilbert returned to farmland the following day, working from daylight till dusk. As they became bored, he considered stealing his father's bicycle. He and his buddies returned to the residence to request his father's bicycle and to once more explain their justification, but his father refused. William continued and gathered the supplies required to build a larger windmill. However, his wife advises him to give their kid a chance so that he might fulfill their dream. Then he went to his son, who informed him that he needed assistance from his father. Triwall started to help William to fulfill his son's goal and gave up his bicycle with the aid of the house, and William started to share his proposal to build a large windmill. They eventually succeeded in turning on a larger windmill with their innovative ideas and perseverance, which generates the electrical energy needed to operate the pump. Water suddenly began gushing as the locals were busy cleaning the area. When Triwall noticed this, he instantly gave his son a bear embrace and expressed his pride in William. Time passes by. With the water of agricultural fields, plants are already beginning to grow healthily and there is fresh hope for a better existence. In another location, the traditional leader finally passed away, but William's discoveries gave his people fresh hope. Thanks for watching my video. Please like and subscribe for more.